everybody. Welcome to the Morning Drive. I am Adam Hernandez. After a few weeks off there, we get back at it this morning with a big question, I think, in the world of sports, considering we have two marquee leagues here in the United States, perhaps having a problem on their hand. And I want to first focus on the NFL and really the whole notion that could we eventually see NBA type contracts in the NFL. I know NFL players have been making quite the fuss about this on social media. Richard Sherman said last night, I believe, that players have to be prepared to strike in order to get these NBA type of deals in the NFL. And obviously, this is all stemming from the offseason that the NBA has had in regards to some of these new contracts that have been given out to Steph Curry, James Harden, even guys like Gordon Hayward with Boston. They've been making a lot of money, and it's and even some of these other ones, what the Knicks ended up giving Tim Hardaway, which was pretty absurd. And again, it gets eyeballs, onto the situation here in the NBA, especially if you're a player in a different sport, and especially if you're a player in the NFL. The NFL is obviously very, very popular. The amount of money that the NFL brings in is really quite remarkable. And it's one of those things that you'd have to figure eventually the players are going to start causing a stir about. But I think when you sit down and look at this logically, and you look at this with as unbiased as you can, it seems like it's impossible for the NFL to ever adopt an NBA contract structure. Hell, I don't even know if the NBA can survive on their current contract structure, considering I believe it's very, very possible that when the next CBA comes around, NBA owners are going to want to draw back a little bit on what's being thrown around here monetarily in the NBA when it comes to these new contracts, and we very well could see another lockout. But in regards to the NFL and whether or not they can do the same thing, where, giving all this money away to their players, like I said, it seems like it's just about impossible. Just because when you take a look at the two different sports, they're very, very different. Aside from how the game is played, just the financial structure, the makeup of the rosters. The dangers that players face when they step foot onto the court or when they step foot onto the field, it's all very, very different. And what I mean by all of that is that, for instance, the roster size. I'm not sure the NFL can afford to pay. In fact, you have to figure that you have to assume that they can't afford giving out, all of these large contracts to a bunch of different players. And again, you make that comparison to a superstar like Steph Curry and a guy like Gordon Hayward, who isn't a superstar but is a decent player. And you go to the NBA and you can see that obviously happening. But if you take that over to the NFL and you see a superstar player like Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers or whoever, and you look at a player who isn't quite at on that same pedestal there, or that same caliber, it just isn't going to work out, considering you're not going to be able to pay that type of money to a bunch of different guys. The NFL has a 53-man active roster plus their inactives. Well, the NBA has a 12-man active roster and a few extra players who maybe did not play or did not dress, so on and so forth. So it seems pretty it doesn't seem logical. It doesn't seem like it'll work, assumingly in the NFL, to carry those contracts for your superstars, for your mid-level players, and then for perhaps your bottom rung players. The other thing here too is obviously when you're dealing with TV contracts and TV time, the NFL obviously has a bigger or a better contract TV deal with these networks, whether it's ABC or ESPN, ABC, or CBS, or NBC, so on and so forth. But they're not shown as much. I mean, the NFL lasts 17 weeks plus playoffs, whereas the NBA obviously has an 82 game schedule plus playoffs. So the difference there is pretty big. And then finally, there's the whole notion about the dangers when you step onto the court or when you step onto the field. NFL players are obviously more prone to career-ending injuries based solely off of the physicality of the sport. And again, that's not to say that the NBA isn't a physical sport, but I don't think you can make a comparison between the two. When you have a wide receiver going up the middle and you have a power forward driving to the basket, going into the lane and taking a hard foul, I just don't think it's comparable in that sense. So NFL owners are going to be much more hard pressed to give out guaranteed contracts to a guy that has a higher probability of stepping out onto the field and suffering a career-ending injury. So that's basically it. I think this is something we're going to examine more on the next episode of the Majors Live, which you get here every Sunday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on themajors.net. You can also catch that show also on Facebook Live at TMSNX, right here on The Majors TV, at The Majors TV, as well as our YouTube channel, youtube.com/TheMajorsTV. But that's going to do it this week. Oh, one more thing. I think it's very plausible, too, that and possible that we end up seeing a NFL player strike over something like this, just like we very well may see an NBA lockout once that new CBA rolls around. Simply because I think, obviously players in the NFL are pissed. They want to get their cut, and I think they do deserve something better than what they're getting right now. It's impossible, like I said, for them to earn what NBA players are earning simply because of the makeup of the league and the makeup of the sport. But in that sense, too, I mean, the NFL has had its share of growth when it comes to contracts. I believe it was a Sporting News article that pinpointed the difference between, for instance, quarterback contracts for high-end starters back in 2003 as opposed to now, when you had like a guy like Steve McNair, the late Steve McNair of the Tennessee Titans, I believe making $8 million per season, when you have a guy like Derek Carr now making over $20 million a season, and I believe a lot of that is guaranteed as well. So, but let us know what you think in the comments, and we'll be back again next week, right here on The Majors TV, which you can catch us at The Majors TV on Twitter, youtube.com/TheMajorsTV on YouTube. Catch me as well on Twitter at TMSNXAdam. So, until next time, everybody have a good day. This is Adam Hernandez for The Morning Drive.